everyone, welcome. It's absolutely lovely to see so many of you here today. I'm Amanda Lynn, I'm a community builder, and as you'll see there's quite a few of us around today. There's 18 community builders across Torbay. So today we're here to have memories of St Marychurch in Babbacombe. Next slide please. So we're going to have, obviously I've introduced myself, I'm Amanda Lynn. And we're going to have Kevin Dixon over here of a talk on Stone and Babbacombe. Then we're going to have the lovely David Ward, who's going to share memories with you. And then we have the lovely Terry Lehman over there, who has some lovely stands of the past of St Marychurch and Babbacombe. So if you can have a look at that later, that'd be lovely. Next slide, please. So why we're here today is we want to bring people to Babbacombe Theatre. We want you to share your stories today. So we want to make this an interactive session as well, which would be lovely. We want to share, we also want to learn the history of, shared history that overcomes our challenges. And then we want to let the residents of Torbay know that this is an asset for all, and so Babbacombe Theatre has come to us today and asked us to bring the local community in. So we came up with this first event to think about bringing the local community in. So it's lovely that you've all come. So next slide, please. So how we're going to do it today is we are going to be filming, and we're filming for people that might not have got mobility issues and haven't been able to come today. So if you don't want to be filmed, then please just let us know. We'll be asking for your memories and suggestions later on with David Ward. And then we have feedback cards that we've given you when you've walked in.
Can you make that writing a little bit clearer and bigger, please?
No, we can't at the moment. No. Sorry, I wish I could see you all. It'd be a lot easier. So basically, we've given you feedback forms today. So anything that you think that you'd like to see at Babbacombe Theatre in the future, that's what we'd really like to know, so that we can put these more events like this on later on down the line. So please do write on your feedback cards what you'd like to see, and we're also going to be asking you later on in the show. And you can give feedback forms back to one of the community builders. So it's a chance to meet new friends and old friends, and we want to make you feel totally at home. So, and also the one last thing, we know a few of you may need to leave early, and that's absolutely fine. So without further ado, because I'm a little bit nervous, I think you will believe, I'm going to pass you over to Kevin for his strolling around Babbacombe and St Marychurch.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. What amazing turnout, isn't it? You know, when we started having these meetings a couple of weeks ago, and we thought, how many people would we get? And I said, well, if we get 20 or 30, that's going to be a huge success. And wow, I mean, I don't know how many we've got, 160, 170, something like that. So people still coming in, so that's brilliant. Unless, of course, and I was reminded just about 20 minutes ago, tomorrow night there is going to be a George Michael tribute act. So you're not here for that one, are you? So is anybody standing up and leaving? No. We've got, doesn't look at all like George Michael. Anyway, so thanks very much for the invitation, guys, for this one. We're going to do a bit of a stroll around Babbacombe, and yeah, sorry folks can't see some of the writing. It's mainly for my benefit. It's how I remember what I'm going to say. So it's the images up there are mainly pictures, so I know what I'm actually going to be talking about. So don't worry too much about that. And it is being filmed, so if you want to see it again, we'll put it back on the internet. So yeah, let's start off. My name's Kevin. I'm a local lad, and the reason I said that, and here's a bit of a secret. I went to a school called Audley Park. Any other Audley Park kids out there?
Yes, I remember it.
Oh, remember it, right. So I don't want any trouble from the Audley Park kids, you see. I know what you're like. You steal people's ties. I remember that from a few years ago. And what happened, when I went to school, I did GCSE history. Anybody else do GCSE in those days? Yeah. And I really didn't like it. And so when I was doing history, it was all about, it was all about kings and queens. Remember that? And dates. Everybody had to do dates, and there's that old rhyme that goes, that Henry VIII had 6 wives, or was it 2 were headed, 3 went to Newton Abbot, or I don't know. And it was, and I thought, why do I need to know that? Or it was about the Nazis, about Berlin in 1936, and I thought, look, I'm 16, I'm never going to go to Germany. Or, and I remember this vividly, it was about agricultural field systems. Remember that? Weren't they obsessed with that? Absolutely obsessed. And Jethro Tull and moving, fields around and seed drills and all that kind of thing. And which may have made a lot of sense if I lived in Newton Abbot and I could see a cow. But when you live in the centre of Torquay, you don't. So it really spoiled for me the whole idea of history. But then I got a little bit older and I started getting interested in, in my town. And there's conversations I'd have in cafes and pubs, and people were saying, did you know that was there and that was here? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's real kind of stuff. So, I should have mentioned, I've got a glamorous assistant called Tom, who's going to help me sort of move the slides on. So thanks, Tom. Next one, please. And I was thinking about how do I explain that? So to explain, how you actually select history, how you make it interesting to people, you just let them choose what interests them. And here's my analogy, here's my story, right? Do you remember record shops? You used to go into record shops and these have these ridiculous big black plastic discs about this big and you have to put a needle in them. So I thought, history is a little bit like a record store, okay? So, and there's a couple of pictures I picked up. Sounds in Paynton, and this one is W.H. Smith in Torquay. Anybody ever go to that one? Yes. But when you go into a record shop, they don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you'll have to listen to Beethoven," or they, "Oh, you look like an Elvis Presley fan. You can only look at those records." No, they don't. You go into a record store and they say, "Here's every record that's ever been produced. It's up to you. Choose them. If you like Madonna, brilliant. Buy a Madonna album. If you like Celine Dion, if you like punk rock or heavy metal, I know there's heavy metal fans out there. You choose what you want, and that's what I'm trying to go over with history. You decide what interests you. Don't let people tell you you've got to listen to this or you've got to look at it in great detail. Tom, next one, please. So that's my lesson. And I was thinking about what do we do with Babbacombe history, and there was so much of it. And the thing about history is we keep making it all the time. You're making it all the time. So I thought, where do we start? Let's go for a stroll. And I thought the stroll starts actually here. And this is a real honour here, because this is the stage where so many of those amazing artists actually started. They started their careers here, and I looked at them. I've got a big long list off the internet, and I thought, my whole half an hour is actually, you're going to have to stop me because I know I'm right. Right. So, and this whole thing about, who started on this stage, this sacred stage, I got a bit emotional then. I'll put a Shakespeare thing up there about all the world's a stage. So I thought I'd choose one person that started on this stage. And does everybody recognise this fella? Brucey. Yeah, Road Brucey. And that was just one example. So they started here. And it's about theatres being the real core of our community and what they provide as a launch pad of ideas, as a community asset. Next one there, Tom. Then I thought, where do we go from here? Then I thought, let's step off the stage. It's going to be metaphorical and there will be homework. Okay. So I'd like you to sort of join me on this metaphorical journey. I'm coming off the stage, metaphorically, I'll fall over in the dark. We're in the audience now. So it doesn't matter if you can't see this, I'll read it off. We're now back in 1946. Second World War has just ended. And during the Second World War, 1.1 million Canadians served in the armed forces. 45,000 lost their lives. 45,000 lost their lives. 54,000 were wounded. And at the end of the war, a lot of them were evacuated through Torquay, and particularly through Babbacombe. 33,000 Canadian personnel were evacuated through here, just going back. People came from all over the world to be evacuated through Torquay. And there was a depot in Torquay, and when it closed, their captain, Hutchison, said, at Torquay, they were very happy. They came to love the people and the weather. As Canadians, they fully realised what the people of this country had suffered and done to win the war. They were deeply appreciative and were proud to have been associated with them. Lovely, isn't it? And as a thank you, in 1946, the Canadians entertained the local children of Babbacombe here, where you're sitting. And I thought that was lovely. So cast your mind back, and the children were given a film show and bags of sweets and chocolates. And we thought about replicating that, didn't we? Bags of sweets and chocolates, but they might get rowdy, all those E numbers. Anyway, so that's here. Next one there, Tom. Yeah, this was a difficult one. You can't... And I thought we're actually outside now, and it links up with that Second World War thing. That I thought, shall I do something on the Second World War? And there's a huge amount of tragedy out there. There's the Rogation Sunday appalling attack. So I thought, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. The honour about the Second World War that I really wanted to in 2 or 3 minutes of a glimpse. So I just wanted to, but I had to recommend it. Just a couple of images there. The one on the left, that's a real picture taken by the Luftwaffe from an aerial, just because they were looking for places to bomb and places to invade from. So that's an original picture of Torquay. What I would recommend, if you are interested in the Second World War, in incredible detail, there's a remarkable book, just came out a few months ago, by a local gentleman called David Scott. And he wrote a book called The Funk Hole Myth, Torquay during World War II. Has anybody read that one? Brilliant book, isn't it? Lovely book. So I'd recommend that one. But I won't spend too much on the Second World War, because it can be quite upsetting. And there's still people around. Anyway. Next one. Yeah. Right, we're outside now. And one of the things that really interests me is names, the names of places. And you can actually often tell how old somewhere is by its name, and they give us huge amounts of information. Let me see, for example, the really old names, usually sort of natural features, go back to pre-Anglo-Saxon days. So, for example, Dart means oak stream, Team means just stream, and that's Celtic. So those words are about 1,800 years old. Then you can actually start looking at, you can actually break down the names of things. So Combe means valley. So we think, and there's none of this is accurate, we think that Babbacombe is Babba's Valley, the name of somebody, they owned it. Watcombe is Wheat Valley. Ellacombe, and Ella is an old tree, the Old Tree Valley. Other words, other local words you can sort of look at, see how old they are. Hella is the old English for hidden place. We know it's Heel. We think it's that valley, you know, the really steep valley in Heel. So you just stumble across. First time anybody used the term Torquay. Torquay's fairly obvious, isn't it? It's the quay by the rocky hill. But the first time we actually hear the word used was in 1577. There was a Catholic martyr, and it's called Cuthbert Main. Anybody go to Cuthbert Main School? Yep, one or two hands go up. Yep, thanks, a map in the middle there. Yep, terrific cameraman. So Cuthbert Main, they named the school after this martyr, and he was executed for preaching in Cornwall, in Launceston. And they cut his body up, you know, this hang-drawn quartering, horrible thing. And the instructions were given to put a quarter of his body on a pole in Torquay. That's where we get Torquay from. Right, Kent, as in Kent's Tavern. Kent means borderland. Livermead, that means meadow of the wild iris. And you can actually break down, you know, particular longer words. For example, that's what I'll do on this. In the late 12th century, Tor Abbey decided that they wanted to build a settlement, like a little trading post, midway between where they are at the moment, at Tor Abbey and Exeter. And they settled on the river. So they set up, and they called it the New Settlement, Tor being settlement. So the New Settlement of the Abbot, which is where we get Newton Abbot from. Right, we're off again, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, we're outside now. This is where your homework comes in, your exercise. top left there is that lovely little promontory point. Everybody know it? I think most of you just walked past it earlier on. And I want you to go back 10,000 years. These are the days when you could actually walk from Babbacombe to France. And that bottom left picture there, just gives you a vague idea. That's because the sea level was 30 to 40 metres lower than it currently is. And that land was populated by Mesolithic hunters. All these guys up on, well, ladies and gentlemen on the top right there. And you could actually walk to France, although you had the river, a mixture of the River Seine, the River Rhine, and the Teign and the Thames in the way. So so you stand on top of that cliff and you see this immense forest stretching out in front of you. We've all forgotten that, except after a really bad storm and a very low tide, you can actually see the tree roots sticking up out of the ground. And that bottom right picture there, that was taken just off Tor Abbey. So there's a whole forest, a whole sunken forest actually off there. And every so often, they've been doing this for hundreds of years, every so often a Brixton trawler would bring up an old 8,000-year-old hand axe in their net. Anyway, so that's looking out to sea a little bit. Next one there, Tom. This is this kind of, wandering around. So we're not going to spend too much time on anything. Next one, Tom. That's brilliant. And while you're up there, look out to sea. And we tend to see Lyme Bay and Tor Bay as being somewhere that's really nice, lots of leisure, lots of people swimming and things like that. For well over 1,000 years, people were terrified of that sea because it brought raiders, invaders, slavers and pirates. And, for example, we know the Vikings were out there. That's the Viking ship on the top right. In about 850, they sailed up the River Teign and attacked King Stainton. They attacked places like Lidford, Exeter, and we know that. If you look at that gold thing, that's an arm ring, and that's a Viking arm ring, and it was found just off the coast of Goodrington on the beach, and it's 10th century and it's Viking, so we know they were down here, and we know they sort of landed in Tor Bay. So our locals were staring out the sea and thinking, wow, it's dangerous out there. Bottom left here, that's a picture of a Barbary pirate ship. For over 100 years, the whole of the south coast of Devon and Cornwall and France were attacked by Barbary slaving ships from North Africa, from Tunis, from Tripoli and Algiers. And we couldn't do anything about it. They were taking hundreds of thousands of slaves back to North Africa. Other threats that were out there, obviously pirates. The whole coast was infested by pirates, whether they were French, Dutch, even English. And mentioning the French, every so often the French would make a serious attack on us. We're always worried about Napoleon, but way before then, if anybody's been to Teignmouth, in 1690, a French fleet turned up and burnt Teignmouth to the ground. They burnt 300 houses. So it was a dangerous place out there. Never forget that one. Next one's up. Yeah, and let's go straight up to date. From the sublime to the ridiculous. Let's talk about movies. I really love movies. I do a talk on movies made in Tor Bay. Here's one that was made in Babbacombe. And I watch these movies so you don't have to. This is not a good movie. Starred Arthur Askew. Anybody remember Arthur Askew? Any Arthur Askew fans in the house? Oh yes, we've got the fan club in. That's brilliant. I never got Arthur Askew. It might be a generational thing. Every movie he was in, he dressed in drag, didn't he? Top right there. No idea. Every movie, and I thought, there's something going on there. Anyway, it's one of those movies made in Babbacombe. The storyline is pretty made in 1944 during the war. Bit of a propaganda piece. It's some British folks get lost at sea and sort of land on this desert island, which is surprisingly populated entirely by incredibly attractive young girls in very short skirts. And I'm guessing in 1944, having a short skirt like that was pretty daring, wasn't it? Yeah, imagine that one. Okay, next one. Since we're talking about movies. Oh, here we go. Right. Does anybody... Oh, shall I go up here? Anybody recognise this gentleman? Yes? Anybody recognise this gentleman? Yep, same fella. Depressingly, we're just about the same age. It's Ray Winston. You might recognise him. And that is what 30 years does to the human body. So, and it's done the same to me. I used to have such lovely hair, didn't I? 1979, they made a movie called That Summer. Was anybody in it? Yes, 1, 2? No? Yeah. Made in, hey, don't stop me. How long do we got? We're doing all right, aren't we? Okay. Amanda's going to sort of get one of those shepherd crooks and just drag me off and go on. So, yeah, made in 1979. Not a brilliant film. The storyline is Ray comes out of Borstal, comes down to Torquay, immediately gets himself a job working on the pedalos down at Babbacombe. There's Babbacombe on the right there. And is any Scottish people in? That's all right. Okay. And immediately he gets into Torquay. He goes in the arcades on the harbour side of Torquay, by the Strand, and immediately starts getting bullied by the Scottish hoodlums and sort of victimised by these thugs. And the storyline is that there's going to be a Torquay all-round the bay swimming race, and Ray's a great swimmer, and so are the Scottish hoodlums, and they frame Ray for robbing a chemist, but because it's a love story, he gets arrested for it, escapes from the police, makes one of the hoodlums admit that he actually did the burglary, and he wins the prize, and everything's all right. So it's a bit predictable. But what it does show, and we forget about this, is just how many people went to the beach in 1979. Look at them. You know, and you can see this on the internet if you've got YouTube or anything. And it's one of those times in Torquay, and I remember them, where you have to get to the beach early and put your little towel down, or it'll be packed. Things have changed, haven't they? And the other good thing about this is, if anybody's into that, my sort of favourite type of that music in 1979, you know, the old punk stuff, the Boomtown Rats. Remember the Boomtown Rats? And Elvis Costello? Yes. All of that kind of generation. I love that kind of thing. So not very good, but yeah, it's really worth seeing. It just shows. And the geography's awful. Yes. Yeah. Who said that? Somebody said, remember that? Yeah, remember that one? There's a scene as part of it that Ray comes to Torquay, and he gets a job in the old Pickwick pub in Pimlico. You know Pimlico, when you have to go around the back street. There's a Pickwick pub there. It's called Twiggy's now. Oh, is any Twiggy's regulars in? They're almost as bad as the Orkney Park kids. Or what's that? So anyway, so Ray gets a job in this pub, and they say, you can actually sort of stay in the room upstairs in the attic. So he gets up in the morning, opens his curtains, and he's got a perfect view of Torquay Harbour side, rather than the back of Primark. So next one there, Tom. I've got a file to go. Oh yes, if you walk a little bit further along, everybody knows this statue, don't they? Isn't it lovely? And it's always got a few little flowers in her hand. And that's, just if folks don't know, it's a lady called Georgina, Baroness Mount Temple. Great humanitarian. She was a member of the Band of Mercy. Her husband set that up. She lived at Babbacombe Cliff, which is that house just on the bottom there. And that's Georgina with Juliet Latour Temple. Everybody seemed to love her. And she was well known for sort of feeding birds off her balcony. And that statue is actually with a couple of birds in her hand. Isn't that lovely? And so when she died in 1901, she was called, in the newspaper, I think it was the Daily Mail, said she was a woman who campaigned with passionate indignation against cruelty and injustice. Isn't that lovely? The Guardian didn't like her, but then said that she followed lost causes and impossible beliefs. Lost causes like being nice to animals. So who was right? And it's 1903 that they actually put up that lovely statue. And if you ever do go up there, this is part of your homework, grab a few flowers and put them in her hands. This is a lovely tribute. Next one there, Tom. Yes, yeah. Oh, hi, Joe. Didn't see her there. Okay. And here's another one. If we go the other direction, that way, just a few hundred yards, we come across where Oscar Wilde stayed, at Babbacombe Cliff. In 1892, he finished off his plays there. A Woman of No Importance. You've probably seen some of these on the telly. Salome and Lady Windermere's Fan. But while he was there, his wife wasn't there at the time. That's his wife, Constance, with one of their children, if I'm right. he invited a gentleman called Bonesy, Lord Alfred Douglas, that's him on the top right there, and he invited him, and he wrote in his diary, "It's a lovely place that only lacks you." And he described Bonesy as a gay, gilt and gracious lad. He lies like a hyacinth on the sofa, and I worship him. You know, the story goes off, and I won't spend much time on it. But as you know, in 1895, Oscar was jailed, died penniless in Paris, wasn't it? Yes. And but never forget the other casualty in that relationship. It was an appalling thing that happened to Oscar, which was Constance. I mean, she again she died. Yeah, it's very sad, very sad death. But what we have got is we've got literally hundreds of letters between Georgina and Constance Wilde, because they were sort of cousins. Next one, please. Yeah, nearly there. Go a little bit further. A little bit further onto Walls Hill, and it's called Walls Hill because obviously because of the walls, not the ice cream. And it's an absolutely incredibly ancient site, and we know that people have been farming there for about 4,000 years. So it's Bronze Age, and it's been reused over and over again by the old original Celtic tribe of Devon and Cornwall and bits of Somerset. They're called the Dumnoni. Pretty much gone. That's a little bit of an illustration of them. Bottom left there with their sort of farming and everything. And pretty much gone except for these little lumps and bumps. Archaeologists are fascinated by them. If you really want to see some of this stuff, go to Dartmoor. And they've got these brown Bronze Age burial mounds. But if you do want to see one of these sort of Iron Age Dumnoni settlements, you will have driven right the way through the middle of one. Has anybody sort of driven from taking the back roads through Milver down to Penny Roundabout? That's it. This is an old image of it here. You drive right the way through the middle of an Iron Age hill fort. Next time you do it, it's only sort of 2 or 3 concentric bumps. But it just gives you an idea. It's 2,000 years old. We think it was evacuated in about 50 AD, just about the same year the Romans started turning up and making Exeter habitable. But one of the things they did find is another little memory, which is really lovely. They did some excavations, about 30 years ago, and they came up with 3 very small little bronze figurines, and one of which is that duck. And it's only about 2 inches long. It's usually in Torquay Museum, but it's now, I think, in Newton Abbot Museum. And it just shows the kind of skills that these men and women actually have. Which is, anyway. But do drive through. When you next time, you'll spot it. Because thousands of people drive down that road and don't realise they're driving through an ancient monument. And next one, Tom? Oh, yeah. Right up to date. Another 5 minutes? Can we do another 5 minutes? Shout at me. Okay. She's tough. Don't tell her. Right. I just thought history is about us. It's about you. And I was just thinking about what did we used to wear when we were younger. And I thought, could you get away with it today? So, could we get away with it? Yeah, is that nice? 1940s fashion? 1950s ladies there? You could get away with that in Torquay, couldn't you? Some of the young women there in 1960s, miniskirts. Miniskirts are back in fashion, aren't they? So you could probably get away with that at downtown on the Strand on a Saturday night. Admittedly, there's probably a few more tattoos on the show, but there you go. There's still a few of those punk rocker types from the 1970s hanging around Castle Circus. I think that's all right, isn't it? But could you really get away with an orange velvet suit? Has any of the gentlemen still got that in the wardrobe? Think it's going to come back into fashion? I think I've probably got one. They will come back. And then back into the 80s, so you've got all of this kind of, what are they, tracksuit, coloured suit thing. Psychedelic-y sort of, rave and music that's got no tune. 5 minutes, right, nearly there. Do you want to finish next one there, Tom? Oh yeah. And I thought we can't talk about Babbacombe without talking about the clubs and the pubs that that we actually used to go to. And I thought this is where the audience participation comes in. What hands coming up on this? So I've got a list of this. Does anybody when they were younger. Anybody drink something called Pony? Hands up, thank you very much. Yes, you're a bit too enthusiastic there, Jackie. Thank you. Yes. Right, here's some more. Snake bite? Yeah, okay. Hands up. Any snake? Oh, there's some really enthusiastic people at the back. That's lager and cider with blackcurrant, isn't it? Ooh. Oh, here's one. I did this with some young people recently, and I said, anybody used to drink snowballs? Yeah, oh yeah. You remember the snowballs? And somebody, I had somebody who's about 18 said, what's a snowball? And I said, oh, well, it's like a bright yellow fizzy drink made out of egg. And it always had to have a cherry in the top. Remember that? And they said, no, you're joking. So I said, people didn't just drink eggs. Was that during the war? No. Here we go. Black and tan. Remember that one? Guinness and ale. Oh, here's one. Anybody go to a party in the 70s and 80s with a Watney's Party 7? Remember those when you had to get 2 screwdrivers and bang out with that, and then it would just squirt all over the ceiling? Right. Oh, here's one for the ladies. Brandy and baby sham. Oh yeah, I said it. I was talking to a lady about this, and she says, "Oh yeah, we used to drink down the harbour side in the ballrooms, and we had the big dresses in the 1950s. And if a gentleman came up and said, you know, would you like a drink, darling?" And we didn't like the look of them, we'd say, yes, a brandy and baby sham, please. Because it was so expensive, and then they'd ignore them. But they liked the man and said, oh, half a side. Skull Lager, Colt 45, oh, got loads of these. Watney's Red Barrel. Oh, and then in the 1980s, they had this thing called, I think I'm going to blame Colin for this. They opened up all these cocktail bars in the 1980s, and you go in and everything would be fluorescent, and they'd have all these little cocktails with a little umbrella in them, and they'd have vaguely sleazy names like Sex on the Beach and things like that. So you'd have to go up to the barmaid and say, oh, can I have Sex on the Beach, please? Anyway, they didn't last very long. Right, nearly there. Last one there, Tom. Yeah, I'm nearly there. Honest there, Amanda. Right, I just sort of say that history, yeah, it's about old buildings, and it's about, you know, field systems, and it's about what you remember, and it's about the Vikings and the Normans and the Tudors, but it's also about us, and it's about how we sort of lived our lives, and it's about people, and it's about people that made a difference. And here's a couple of gentlemen that sort of changed my life when I was a bit younger. You probably know some of them. Lionel Digby, anybody know him? Yes. I love Lionel. There he is, on the left there, and he's with Shane Fenton. But I knew him as Alvin Stardust. And I was talking to Sharon earlier. She said that Alvin Stardust actually performed on this stage. Again, it's not an honour. I saw Lionel. I bumped into him in Iceland, downtown, in the in the Holden Centre. Does anybody call it the Holden Centre still? Yeah, we do, don't we? We don't call it Union Square. That's ridiculous. In the Holden Centre, and he was by the sort of sell-by date bread. And I said, Lionel, what are you doing? You must be one of the richest men in Torquay. And he went, that's how you become one of the richest men. Right, and also I couldn't finish off without mentioning another person who sort of changed my childhood and helped me. No, it didn't help. He actually gave me nearly every hangover I ever had in the 1970s, and that's the wonderful Colin Matthew. Is Colin out there somewhere? Colin, where? Oh, he's hiding. He's hiding at the back. Okay, well, he's out there anyway. So Colin, thank you very much for that. Colin sort of ran the clubs and the pubs that made my youth possible. Can't remember any of it, but I mean, that's besides the point. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I'm not bad, am I? You're not panicking yet? You're impressed? Okay, because I can go on for days. I just thought, how am I going to finish this one off? How do you, and I thought, well, because we've been out there, we've wandered around, we've been down to the beach, we've been up to Walls Hill, we've been to Milburn Woods, and so how do we finish this one off? So audience participation, and you're not going to go home until you do this properly. So we started off on this stage, started off on here. So, right, can you all join in with me on this one? Just to thank yourselves for coming. Tom, next one. Ready? 1, 2, hang on, oh, eager. I didn't think they'd be eager. I didn't think they'd be that eager. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Nice to see you. To see you. Nice. Ladies and gentlemen, hope that was interesting. Next one there, Sean. If anybody's interested in this kind of stuff, there's a website, have a look at that. And I'd like to introduce, next one please there. David, you're on. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, thanks Kev. This guy gives some fantastic talks in and around the Bay, really, really interesting. Well, I'm here today, I'm what is classed as a community connector. So I work alongside Amanda and Jenny, and also in various other parts of the Bay, because I'm sort of an outspoken person. People get to know me, people get to stop me, so I can feed information through to these guys, which is all about part of the community. I'm going to open up in a minute. We've got 3 announcements to make from the people in the audience. I think they know who they are. So we'll get you to raise your hand and one of the mics will come round to you. And then after that, I'm going to open up to you guys if you've got a story to share. There's lots and lots of interesting people here in Babbacombe St Marychurch and Bay-wide. And some people don't know exactly what's happened. I had a wonderful conversation with a lady earlier, and it was great to hear it, and we sort of interacted quite well. So if you've got any stories to tell, again, raise your hand. I'm going to try and take this side of the theatre to that side of the theatre and just do a general mix of people. We've only got half an hour, so if you can make your story quite quick and snappy, but get your point of view or your story across, that would be great. So if we can open up with David, if we can take the mic up through.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you're here today, you're obviously interested in our local history. I can see many familiar faces here of people who are members already of our local history society in Babbacombe and St Marychurch. But if you're not already a member, and you want to know more about us, can I just say a few words about who we are and what we do? During the autumn and spring, we meet once a month, about 100 yards from here at St Anne's Hall, where we have a variety of local speakers on local history matters. We hold a Christmas party, we hold a summer cream tea, we hold excursions and coach tours. We have volunteer guides who take people, both visitors and locals alike, on walking tours around Babbacombe and St Marychurch. We have our own archive of material about the local area, photographs and memories alike. We also record those memories. We have a nice little book on memories of the Second World War here in Babbacombe and Marychurch. We publish those stories on our website, in our Facebook page, and in our newsletter. Now, if you'd like to find out more about us and come to our meetings, the next one is on the 20th of January at St Anne's Hall, and our esteemed speaker is none other than Kevin Dixon, who will gather some idea of the calibre of speaker we have. But you'll be more than welcome to come along. You will appreciate that joining such an esteemed society comes at a cost, and it's £4 a year for individual membership, £6 for a couple or a household. That's really good value, and we would welcome anyone who would like to come along and join us and share their local history with us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. There are 2 other people that have got an announcement. Can I see your hands? One was about the Christmas fair. Angela over there. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Angela Godwin. I'm a new member of the Precinct Centre, which is, as most of you probably know, at the top of the precinct, and it holds various activities, of which I have a programme here. But on Saturday, they have a craft sale between 10 and 12, and we'd like you, I'm not a member of the committee or anything like that, it's just the fact that I was coming here, it seemed an ideal opportunity to advertise the craft sale at the Precinct Centre from 10 till 12 on Saturday. We'd love to see you. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. There's one other person, Kevin? There was one other person, a third person. No?
Yeah, but that wasn't one of the
No, that wasn't one
announcements.
print. Okay, we'll go over to Margaret up there. She's got a nice little bit of local interest for us. And I'm hoping someone else is going to put their hand up. And I'm desperately looking at them, so hope she gets the nod.
Hello, my name's Margaret Halliday, and my husband was about the 7th generation of Grants, the marble works on the Timber Road. We made many, many presents for the Queen when she was married and Prince Charles, and we used to make very fabulous bases of different marbles for gold palm trees, for asprays and places like that. And in my mother-in-law's junior days, John Betjeman used to come and stay at Dunmow on the Timbers Road because his father was a member of Grant's board, and he made cabinets and we made the marble tops for them. Thank you very much.
Lovely, that's great. Thank you. It's so interesting how much marble came from Torquay, Torbay, and inside Devon that have filtered out through the rest of the country, and I think indeed the rest of the world. Have we got anyone over this side at all? Don't be frightened, don't be scared. No? Now I'm looking at this side. Anyone over here? Share a story. Were you brought up in Babbacombe, St Marychurch? Up the top there? Thanks very much. I'm sure we're going to tease your taste buds to speak up. Now this is lovely Wynne, who I know very well. Nice to see you, Wynne.
I was only going to say that I remember Arthur Astley here making Bees in Paradise, which was down in Babbacombe. And when we were walking along the Downs, friend and I, one day, and he was down there, and he was also machine gunned. They came in under the radar, machine gunned us, and came up and machine gunned along Babbacombe Downs, and we dived for the shelter. So that little shelter now saved our lives because they machine gunned all the way along. And Arthur Astley was at the beach then. He was machine gunned as well. And he said about it afterwards in the book. So I'd like to share that with everybody. Okay.
That's lovely, Wynne. Anyone else like to share the local stories? Gentlemen over this side. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Beg your pardon. Mentioning Arthur Astley, anyone who saw him in The Ghost Train, written by somebody who taught at Torquay Boys Grammar from Dad's Army, that performance in The Ghost Train, for my money, is as good as the early Marx Brothers stuff. He was brilliant in that. If anybody gets a chance to see the film, again, it's a wartime film, the 40s, The Ghost Train. Highly recommended, Arthur Astley. Thank you.
Anyone on this side at all? There you go, front row lady there, dear neighbour of mine.
No, it's only something very short and sweet. A few years back, I met Sir Derek Jacobi up on the seafront here, and he was filming for a holiday programme, and one of his memories was he was staying in a house that belonged to a friend's mother just on the Babbacombe Road opposite the little shops here. And it was when he was on holiday with his father in Babbacombe that he decided he would become an actor. So I think, what a lovely tribute to us. He was a very nice man to talk to, shook my hand and had a chat with me, which was lovely. But I thought it was here in Babbacombe that he decided to become the actor that he's become.
Wonderful. We've had so many wonderful actors, celebrities come through Babbacombe St Marychurch. You know, it is a destination, it is a hub. Everyone knows each other, and if they don't know each other, knows somebody that knows somebody. Anyone else at all? No? Oh, just a bit of local thing which I'm quite passionate about is the Palace Hotel. Originally built as Bishop Stowe for the Bishop of Exeter. He seemed to have quite a lot of palaces and places to hide in. He certainly had one in Stoke-on-Teanhead. Obviously, lots of history on the palace, got bombed in the war, got rebuilt, became one of the best hotels, I think, in the Bay. I'm a bit biased there, because that's where I did my training. And unfortunately now, it's been pulled down, and it's awaiting a new build. But the bishop that resided there, Phil Potts, him and his wife are buried up in St Marychurch graveyard around the church. So as you go through the Lich Gate, on the left-hand side, there's two quite ornate graves there. So that's Bishop Phil Potts. That's my piece of information for you. Anyone else got anything to share? Must have. Gentleman at the back. Yeah, Miss, you just wave again after this gentleman.
Okay. It's not really a story, it's more an observation, because I don't know whether people remember it was a pub restaurant called the John Lee on Babbacombe Downs in the 1960s. I don't know whether anyone else remembers. Because it was associated with a man who reputedly committed a murder in this area, and he was not, although he was condemned to death, something happened. And he was not hanged 3 times, I believe, and he was released. And I've got all those facts right, but I know the story of something like that. I don't know what actually happened to the John Lee. No idea. I'm going back to about the late 60s, maybe.
Yeah. I think Terry down here has got a bit more information on that, so if you're interested, actually Babbacombe's famous for someone else, I believe, that lives down there, so I know Terry's got a bit more from that. So interact, you know, Kevin's going to be around, and you know, there's going to be lots of people, so we'll give you time at the end to cross over bits and pieces. Was there a lady with her hand up somewhere? In the middle there, and then we'll go up to the top. So middle down here, further, there you go.
Well, I'm going back to Bishop Philpotts and a group that I'm involved with, which is the Community Drama Group, which is based at Endeavour House. It's a drama group for everybody, but mostly it supports people who have had addiction problems, mental health issues. And going back to Bishop Philpotts, we've actually made a film about St Mary Mag's Church, which has been a supporter of the group, and it's been filmed all around bits of Torquay. We did put the film on at the Little Theatre not so long ago. It was filmed and rehearsed via Zoom through the lockdown, but it is really professional. It got shortlisted for the London Short Story, London Short Film, and we got a plaque for it. And Bishop Philpotts is in it, so he had 17 children, so I should imagine his wife isn't very happy lying at either side of the gate, so she probably wanted to be left alone in there. But I wondered if we might be able to show the film to everybody.
Well, please fill in your questionnaire on that with your details, and I'm sure we can pass it through and see what we can do, because this is what's it about. If you want to know something more about Babbacombe St Marychurch, or indeed our surrounding areas, fill them forms in, and that sounds really, really interesting.
The group also runs a choir as well on a Tuesday night for anybody that wants to sing or doesn't feel they can sing, but it welcomes everybody with open arms. So.
And I think I know the group. What's the name of the group?
The
Unleashed Theatre Company.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. They take in all rounds of people with addictions, although it's run by a couple of the church people. You haven't got to be religious to be in it. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to be in one of their shows, which was an outdoor performance in Babbacombe, and for the life of me, I can't think what the name of it was now, but absolutely fantastic, caring people. There was someone further, gentleman down here. Godspell, that's its name, Godspell.
We've only been here for 2 years, so I don't claim to have any memories. My wife is the minister at Cross United Reformed Church, which is, we never know whether it's St Marychurch or Babbacombe, we're right on the border, I think. But linking back with the bishop, that church was founded in 1852 by people who I believe were a bit upset by his regime and his lifestyle. So they defected from the Anglicans and it became a free church, a congregational church, and now United Reformed. But the building itself is very Anglican in style, but the church is probably a bit different. Yeah, everyone's welcome to come and visit.
Wonderful, great church. Oxford counted as the city the town aspires, and that's very much like Torquay. And that came about really is people used to fall out with their parish church and think, right, and they were wealthy at the time, we'll build our own church. So that's why we've got all these churches in Torquay generally. Is there anyone else? Up right to the centre, I'll let you girls decide which one.
Thank you. Just to elaborate a little further on what was said earlier on the children who came here to have the chocolates and the film, which incidentally was Charles Lawton Mutiny on the Bounty. It was supplied by the Knights of the Columbia, which was a kind of a Canadian NAFI, who were based at the Foxlands Hotel. And the Knights of Columbia entertained us for that day, and the following year, having returned to Canada, they sent boxes of chocolate for everyone at the school. I thought just to take it a little further.
Smashing. Smashing. You know, there's so much history there, and I know there's people out there that can say a lot more. Have we got any more hands at all? Anyone brought up in Babbacombe? Childhood? Schooling? No? Gentleman up there beside you?
My name is John Lee, but no relative. Hello there. It's just an anecdote about my father. He was stationed at the Palace Hotel during the war when it was bombed. But as a result of that, the family moved down from Swindon to Marnham Road, and that was where I was brought up. It was probably the best decision they ever made. I think Babbacombe's got a remarkable history. I think it's one of the most charming places to live in the Bay, and it's got a real community spirit, shown today by the number of people here, and it's really good to see it. But I thought as a little indication of how families arrive in the town and Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Wonderful. And if I remember rightly, I can't think which newsreel it was on. I'm sure you'll be able to tell us. I was watching this old black and white promotional film on Torquay. And on this film was a lady called Mrs. Lee. And then I realised, looking at the house, looking at the door gates, it was John's mother, advertising her B&B. So that was absolutely fantastic for me to be sat there seeing John's mother's house advertising her B&B, and it's ridiculous pence or pennies, whatever it was. That was in Tor, yeah. So
in Marnham Road, every house in Marnham Road was really B&B.
Yeah, very much the same in Babbacombe.
Yeah, that's right. And this was Marnham Road, and neighbours used to rescue the night's sleeping, and then they would come round to the house for their breakfast. They were called sleepers back in the 50s.
I wouldn't remember that, John. Anyone else at all? These are fantastic. Lady up there. Come on, left-hand side.
I went to Homelands Infant School and onwards on to Ellicombe when one moved on. But beside the Homelands Infant School, there was what I always knew as an open-air school. Now, obviously we never went in there, but I'm sure it doesn't exist now, but do people remember it?
Mary, are you going to elaborate on that?
Well,
Hang on, let's get a microphone up to you.
hands up. Where's Mary?
I could talk to this lady, Mary Ewing, for hours.
He's off my Christmas list now.
The open air school is now part of the what's it called, Scupires now, isn't it? They will keep changing these names. It was closed soon after the war, I think, and they've got the school out at Babbacombe, which is for children with health difficulties, that sort of thing.
Mayfield.
Homelands, as you know, the little Homelands was moved over to West Hill, and it's still Homelands School, but it's now a primary school, not just a nursery and infants. I went to Homelands School Infants when I was 2.5 because our evacuees went there, and I wasn't having any of these two boys going to school, and I was left out of it. So when no one was looking, I sneaked over to, at 2.5, from St Margaret's Avenue over to Homelands, and just went in the nearest classroom and joined in with whatever they were doing. So in the end, they got fed up with bringing me home and said, she's going to have to stay. You're allowed to start at 3. So I stayed there until I was 5 and then left because my mother decided that to go from St Margaret's Avenue over to Homelands was more difficult than going up to West Hill School. And after the church had been bombed, she was a bit more careful with me. What was the other question? The open air school is the one that moved over to Watcombe and is now Mayfield. It was for kids that had, you know, in those days, if you got health problems, you were often stuck in. If you were at, do you remember the place on the moors for people with TB? And they used to sleep in beds on the outdoors, and it was convalescent, but it was also a bit more than that. They had really bad cases of TB there, and they used to sleep in beds outside at night. Well, the open air schools were like that type of thing, but as a day school. The school the other side, which eventually became Westlands, was originally a central school, and it was Homelands Central School. And they went there until they were 14, which was then the school leaving age. And eventually it became part of Devon and was a technical high school until we became our own Torbay Council, etc. And eventually we managed to get it back and have it as mixed instead of being all boys. Because at one period of time, if you wanted a grammar equivalent education, there were twice as many places for boys as for girls because that was still specified as a boys' school. And parents like myself said, oi, what about our daughters that are more intelligent than some of these boys there? So that's when it became a mixed school and eventually went in with West Hill as well.
Smashing, Mary. Thank you ever so much for that. It's interesting to what Mary said there about they took it back off the county. St Marychurch was its own little town. It had its own town hall, thankfully, which is still there now. Okay, it may be apartments, but at least that's part of our heritage that hasn't been touched. And again, if it wasn't for Colin Matthews, this theatre wouldn't be here, because the council wanted to get rid of. And look what's happened in the 25 plus years. I'm sure I'll get corrected later. If it wasn't for this guy stepping in, we would be sat here today. Anything else? Any hands?
I've got something.
Put your hand up then. Lady down here in the middle. Let's get a microphone to you, sweetheart.
Something I remember as a child.
We'll bring the microphone over to you so we can all hear.
It's something I remember as a child going down to Babbacombe Beach. Nobody's mentioned today Babbacombe Lee, but I remember the little house being down on the beach in the woods where she lived. And also, my cousin and I used to sit on the wall and watch people trying to get their cars up around the street park. And the man in the pub would come out and charge half a crown to drive their car up around. And we used to love seeing that.
Yes, I know what you're on about.
Just a bit of nostalgia, really.
Yeah, I got stuck on that hill once with my solicitor, and we were in a CV, the French cars, whatever, and I had to literally run down to the pub and got all the fishermen to push us in the right direction. How am I doing? Right, is there any feedback? I mean, there's lots of things, we want to hear from you. We've been privileged enough today from Colin to give us the theatre, for him to work on some projects along with Sharon, the theatre manager. I have heard one or two once in the past from going through Babbacombe St Marychurch. Let's have some suggestions. And you've also got your forms there to fill in. There's a lot of knowledge out there with you guys, and there's a lot of knowledge out in our local community where people haven't brought it in with us today. So if you can go from here and sort of like spread the word, get the buzzword going, it'll be great. Kevin's got a fantastic Facebook page. I know not all of you are, computer friendly, but a lot of you are. I've got a Facebook page called, tongue-in-cheek, it's called BRA, but it stands for Babbacombe Residents Association, which takes in Babbacombe, Playmore, St Marychurch and Marychurch, because I couldn't open up Bay White because I haven't got enough experience to do that. And there's lots of interesting posts that come onto that. So, if we haven't got any, open it up. I don't want you to go home and say, oh, I wish I said that. We're all here. Lady up there through the top, smashing. I'll get your hands up, don't you worry.
Hi, I'm a parent to 3 children in the local area, and I've done the Historical Society walk around Babbacombe. It's fascinating. Went home and told my children, and they're really interested as well. So I'd like to try and get more of the younger children in schools doing this kind of thing, because the children would find this absolutely fascinating. And also, it gives them a bit of history of where they live. It might encourage them to stay here rather than move further afield as they get older, if they feel that they're part of the community here.
That's smashing. Put it down on your form. That'll be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I was privileged enough to go to school in Babbacombe, which was in Portland Road, which is now Portland Court. It was up for, they wanted to build a new school because it was a Victorian old school, very cold. And originally it was going to be built where the range is now. That sort of got poo-pooed because the road got busier. So then it was moved up to Quinta Playfields, which once was our back garden. So there's lots of little snippets going on within and around, which, is going to be forgotten. So we've really sort of like got to make our memories, which our community builders are fantastic at doing. So is there anyone else at all that wants to share anything at all? No? Lady up through there, is there?
Oh, hang on.
Oh, God, Terry wants to talk.
Sorry, I don't normally talk, but heard so much here this afternoon. Please come and have a look. I've got a photograph of the original Bishop's Stone. I've got photographs of the house on the beach, and Kevin was saying about the Canadians at the end of the Second World War. Don't forget, we had the New Zealanders at the end of the First World War, and they used Dixon House, they used Hampton House, they used Homelands, the original house, and various other places around the town, even to having a clubhouse in the Scala building, which I've got photographs of. I didn't bring today, but it shows you what that building would have been like inside. It would have been fantastic. So please come and have a look. Took me hours to put this together. I hate to think I did it for nothing. And Homeland School, oh boy, I was there. I hate to admit it, I grew up in Ericombe.
There's no shame in that. My parents still live there. Is there anyone else I've missed? I'm scanning. Up the top there.
Well, I actually went to Homelands Infant School, and the part I would like you to think about, Torquay United. I'm sure a few of you have stood or got in at half time for free when you were kids, and we stood on the bank, now part of a grandstand, but many occasions there when they've had a lot of community. We had VE Day out on the grass outside of the field, and I'm sure you all know that we could still walk through Plainmoor ground itself during a match because it is publicly owned land. Not just Torquay United would love to buy it,
yeah.
But you do have that right, but I'd suggest you have your running shoes on if you do.
I've heard that story as well, and where the swimming pool's built in that grass and playground area.
We raised the funds for that.
Was it, yeah, for the swimming pool, but that actually land, and Mary will correct me, was gifted to the children of... So, yes, that ground all around there was gifted to the children of Babbacombe and Plainmoor. Mary gets on a high horse if anyone's planning on doing something with that, and it's really interesting. Lady at the back up there, or gentleman, I can just see a hand.
Mine is also about Plainmoor. When we were young, at half time, they had to open the gates for all the children to go in because they weren't allowed to charge us. And I wonder what's happened to that now. It's got hidden away.
I think it's called commercialisation. I mean, we nearly lost the football ground to the old dump out at the Willows. Thankfully, that hasn't happened. Is there anyone else down here?
Thought I'd share this one, even though I'm probably a little bit younger than most people here. But having grown up here, it's always interesting that the primary school in St Mary and St Margaret share the same football field. And because of that, there's always been a rivalry. So, and it's surprising just how many people remember this, that it's Priory Prats versus St Maggots. I was a maggot, and so many people know that. You can say it almost anywhere. Anyone who's been to St Marychurch knows it.
That's smashing. I used to be a governor of Priory, and there was that long-going battle. But going back to the Babbacombe school days, we didn't have a sports field, so we used to get marched up to Walls Hill for our sports and our sports days, which was fantastic. Anything else before I hand you back? Go on, wherever you are. Lady at the back somewhere. Wearing these varifocals on stage doesn't work.
I'd just like to ask a question. Years ago, my mum used to say she was a servant in a building, and it's the blue building at the very top. You know, you can see it from Hill Village and whatever. And she was a servant in that house. I wondered if anybody knew what the house was called and who possibly owned it.
Sorry, I missed part of that.
It's a really big building, and it's right at the very top, and you can see it from the village.
That must have been quite early on.
Yeah. Because obviously I'm going 80 odd years ago. It's still there.
Terry Castle you're on about.
A big bright building it is, and you can see it from Barton and wherever. Like you can see the church steeples. You can see this building.
Terry Castle. So come and have a chat with us later and we'll try and pinpoint that for you. No, is there anyone else there? It's Mary again. I knew once we started her she wouldn't stop.
This isn't a telling, it's an asking. Does anybody remember the Mad Major in St Marychurch? Can you tell me something about him? Because I used to see him as a child and I never really found out who he was, whether he was a major or what. But I do remember him playing golf in the middle of Castle Circus with a rolled up pair of socks and a walking stick.
It's amazing how many people you mix with. There's quite a few people saying yes then. Go over and converse with Mary later. She's a fountain of knowledge and I know she'll want your feed into that. Right, another one over this side. Lefts are doing better than the right.
I'm a few years younger than probably a few of you, but I've moved here for 40 years now, and both my daughters went to Babbacombe School. And I don't know whether anybody knows Cedar Close down St Marychurch Road.
Yeah.
Well, on the corner there, she bought a little bungalow, and it was derelict. She got it at auction for a really low price. But it was the coach house to the manor. And when the deeds come through, I was absolutely fascinated about who had owned this manor. Anyway, I can't remember everything now, but while she was modernising this little bungalow, I found some bowls in the pantry at the back, which was demolished. And I've still got them at home, and I've washed them and everything. And I just don't know what to do with them. So if you can suggest what to do with them, you're more than welcome to have them.
There's David at the back there. If you'd like to wave your hand, David. Have a word with him. Have a word with him when we're over. I'm sure he'll be able to point you in the... See, we've just done some connections there. We've got Mary with the Mad Major. We've got this lady with her bows. We are connecting. So, you know, we could all be connectors here. You could take the burden off me and share it to the girls. Right, I'm going to hand you back to Amanda.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. So I really want to thank you all for coming today. It's been really heartwarming to be able to hear your stories, and actually all connect together. So we're going to spend a little time now. You can spend time going to see Terry's stand, and if you want to speak to one of us personally, I'm the community builder for St Marychurch, Babbacombe, Marychurch, as well as my colleague over there at the back, Jenny Language, if you want to speak to her. And also there's a number of other community builders, and Jess, who's from the Aging Well programme, because that's what we run under. So if you want to speak to us about anything, or you'd like to be involved with Babbacombe Theatre, or even join the focus group that we're looking at setting up, then please do fill in your feedback form or just let us know. And we just want to say thank you very much for coming, and I hope you have a lovely time.